Hi, so today's video is going to be a little different than my normal teaching videos. I'm essentially going to try to, rip off R. David R. a little bit. If you don't know that guy, you should check out his channel. He does lots of cool stuff with drums that involve building or modifying drums. So that's pretty cool. So I have this drum here. It is technically, nominally a snare drum, but as you can see, it's the lamest version of a snare drum ever. It is from a little kid's drum set. Came with like a 14-inch kick drum and a 6-inch tom. And basically I found it on the side of the road, so totally free. And it doesn't work very well. You can see inside the snares don't go all the way across the snare side head here, and they just have this knob instead of a normal strainer. So it's pretty worthless. It doesn't make a good snare drum sound. I'll play it this way, and then I'll play it once I'm done with it, and we'll see if I can improve it. Essentially, it mounts off the bass drum like a tom, which is dumb because it doesn't work very well. It's got, if you can see here, the classic stick chopper hoops. See if I can get it to focus. Right, there's no flange. This is only a double flanged hoop. It's not a triple flanged hoop. So of course this is going to eat up sticks. So the plan is I'm going to take off this stupid half snare mechanism, and I'm going to cut down and reassemble a real set of snares for the 10-inch size. Then I'm going to probably have to cut a snare bed out of the snare side hoop with my Dremel tool or something in order to slip it through. I bought a butt plate on eBay that should arrive at any time now, and I have an extra Ludwig strainer that I'm going to put on the side and try to make this into a real functioning snare drum. Okay, so here's a standard set of snare wires that I took off of a drum. You can see they're kind of missing some strands right here, so they weren't that great to begin with, but for a little kid's drum, this should work out fine. They are 13 3/8. I only need about 9.5 inches worth of this, so I'm gonna see if I can take a soldering iron and heat up this end, and it looks like they're soldered on. We'll find out in a second here. So right here you can sort of see why I would assume that they're soldered on. It looks like they're embedded into some soft metal, like solder would be. So it turns out, in my ultimate ignorance about how snare wires are constructed, they're not soldered on. This is not nearly hot enough to release them. So what I'm going to have to do is cut them off with wire cutters and then probably just glue the shorter strands back to this end piece. So it turns out that while I cut them off, it left a bunch of sharp stuff here, so I'm just pulling out the remainder of the wires with needle nose pliers. So I'm going to use a piece of tape on the end here to try to hold the wires still while I get it to the right length. So after a fair amount of fighting, I've got the tape holding these snare wires at approximately the right length here, about 9.5 inches for a 10-inch snare drum. So of course the only glue I have available is wood glue. I don't know if it's going to work, but I'm just going to put a bead of it down here and find out. Okay, so I took the tape off of the end that I glued here, and I just have some wire cutters, and I'm just going to clip off the ends here. Okay, so as you can see, it's not real attractive, but I think that it's maybe going to work as long as I don't put too much tension on the snare wires and rip this out. Okay, so in preparation for this changeover, I've decided to, of course, remove the initial sort of half snare mechanism. So I got the rim off and the bottom head off, and just going to unscrew this guy till it falls apart. There's one other screw, and then I'll take it out. So I've got my holes marked for the strainer, and I'm going to just drill them out, see if I can make it work. Okay, so I'll just put the bolt on from the inside, and there's the strainer side. Okay, there we go. Ludwig P85 strainer attached to worst drum in the history of drums. So I picked up this pearl butt plate on eBay for like $3.60 or something, including shipping. So that's almost free. And this strainer I had around just because. So I already had this, and this was $3, and this is the most expensive piece of this build. Okay, now I'm going to go for. Okay, so now it has butt end and a strainer, so all we have to do is put it together. Almost forgot, there's no hole for the snare to come through on these hoops, so I'm gonna have to cut that out. So I have a Dremel tool with a cutting wheel. This might be a complete disaster. We'll find out. Okay, so it sort of worked. I have little baby holes in there for the wires to come through. Okay, so at this point in the build here, I've got it all attached, and it looks like a snare, but this is fully tight on the strainer. The straps are pulled really, really tight, and the snares don't even seem like they're touching. If I play the drum, doesn't sound like it has snares on it at all. So I did something wrong, obviously. My next thought is that I need to have snare beds in the bearing edge. That's probably what I missed. So I'm going to try that and see if that helps. Well, I sanded in some bearing edges, so I jammed this washer into the strap here. As any middle school student knows, that'll sort of temporarily fix it, but it doesn't really. I guess we'll do the after sound now, and we'll see how bad this thing sounds. So I put in about 4 hours of work on this thing, and it turns out that the discernible difference seems to be that it's higher pitched because I tuned it higher. That's not that good. Anyway, stay tuned because I bought some broken or sort of in disrepair wood hoops from eBay for real cheap, and I'm going to try to put wood hoops onto one of my existing snare drums in a hacked and generally probably ineffective fashion.